Hey everybody, it's Roxanne again. Welcome to Whitecotton Quilts if you are a new subscriber to my little channel. So, the last video was an update video and I know it was fairly long, but the voting is done, and so the quilt that won for the wall quilt this time is my Nighttime Blooms. Isn't this great? I love this pattern. It's all 2.5-inch strips, which means it's going to be very, very easy to accomplish if you're a beginner quilter. I take this one, let's see, I had a tag on it. It says not for sale, because I take this one to the markets with me all the time. Everybody loves it. So if you want to get your hands on this pattern, go to my Etsy shop. I have it available in paper and PDF versions. All it takes is, I think, 2 jelly rolls of your color, or I used yardage, so it'll say, I think it's like 1/4 of a yard, and then the majority of it was the green. So it'll say all that. It turns out beautiful. You really don't need any special tools for it because you're going to do the tube method for making your triangles. I do recommend that you get a Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer. This is trimmer A for trimming them up. It'll make your life a whole lot easier for trimming. All right, so that's out of the way. Let's get down to this month's video. Okay, I had discovered FPP and I am totally loving the foundation paper piecing. So let's get started into how you get started doing FPP, which is foundation paper piecing if you're a beginner. So the first thing I did is I started by purchasing a book to teach myself how to do the FPP. It's right here, Learn How to FPP. This is by Nancy Mahoney. I loved this book. It was very informative. Like, I did not know that there was two frames of mind on how to do FPP. So I highly suggest purchasing this book. You can get it at local quilt shop. I purchased mine from Amazon. And so the next thing I did was I started working on my quilt for the fair, which was a FPP project. I'm loving doing it, but that's not what I'm going to show you today. If you're a beginner, we want to start with bigger projects, right? So I'm doing what's called a New York Beauty block. And so the first thing I did was, you have to have a pattern to go by, right? I went on my EQ8 software and I found a foundation paper piece design of the New York Beauty block. Let me put it that way because typically that's what it's going to look. And I just printed it. It'll print everything for you. It gets printed because it's a big block. I made it 12 inches. It's going to get printed on multiple pages. And then you would simply just tape them together. So in this case, let me hold it, get it kind of lined up. But anyways, you would tape them together. It gives you 1/4 of an inch seam allowance to help you line it up good. And you will need 1, or in this case 4 pages per 1 block. Depending on the size quilt you're making, I decided to do 16 blocks, so I had to print 4 pages 16 times and tape them together to get my foundations. So here's the big foundation. Here's the small foundation. And if you notice in the New York Beauty block, you also have a couple other pieces. You have this piece right here. You also have a curve on the inside, a small curve, and then you have this curved piece. So what I decided to do there is take my pieces that I printed and cut them out and tape them to, this is a hard piece of plastic. It was a signage display at my part-time job that they let me have because they were going to throw it away. Really stiff, plasticky, and I just taped it to it and cut it out that way. So there's the curve, one curve, the inside one, the small, the medium, and this is the outside to make it a square piece. So I have all these. Your next step is up to you. There's a lot of different frames of mind on how to do the next step. Some people prefer to take and cut each of these little individual pieces out, add 1/4 of an inch to it, and then they have an exact shape. Other people just cut a close, or use your scraps, get a piece big enough and fill it in. I chose to do kind of a combination of the two. So what I realized is these pieces here on the widest point was about 2 1/4 or something inches. So I just cut myself a piece of fabric that was 3 by 3 because I knew that that would fit in here. I'd have a little bit of waste left over, but when you're learning, I wasn't really concerned about that. So I knew this was 3 pieces, so I just went ahead and cut all my pieces for this inner one 3 inches. And then I kind of did the same thing for this one. You know, I measured the widest point down here and realized that it's about the same, 3 inches, but the height is what gets you. So I made the height 5, so I knew it would cover. And so that's what I did there. So now that you've got that figured out of what size pieces you're gonna need, let's get into the actual sewing of this unit, because it can be kind of confusing, but once you get it down, I just know you're gonna love it as much as I do. So let me show you a couple of the blocks that I've got started here. I'm going to cut some more. I've chosen some scrap fabric. This is some Tula Pink scrap fabric that I've chosen. I tried to pick a good, I wanted it to be pinks. So I've got some good pieces here. And when I was cutting this last night, I was able to get 2 of the 3 by 5 pieces and 2 3 by 3 pieces for my curves. So that works out perfectly. So what I'm gonna do next, and believe it or not, actually I don't think I'm gonna have enough here, so I'm gonna pull some more into it with my stack of scraps here. So I've got pinks, but I really think I could add some green in there and it wouldn't hurt anything, or even some aquas. So what I think I'm gonna do is I think I'm gonna pull in that. And I think I need a way of pulling some of this in. So I'm gonna cut these pieces and then I'll get right back with you, and then we're gonna head over to the sewing machine and I'll show you how you get started actually sewing your pieces to this. And it's so much fun, guys. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, I've got my pieces for my big curve. I'm gonna put, these are the curved piece. This is the big curve, which is this one. These are the small curve, which is this one. And this is what I decided to use for this background. So I'm gonna start with the big curve first because it's the easiest one to show you first. And I've got a cutting table set over here so I can cut while I go. I've got a small ruler that is easy to manage with a 1/4 inch. You're gonna need that. I also have a bunch of Elmer's washable school glue, and you'll see why you need that in a second. And I've got my machine stitch set on like 2, so I got it set on a really small stitch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find, this is E1, all these are labeled E. So E1, you want to start at the number 1 spot, and we're going to put some glue right on that number 1 spot. I'm doing glue in lieu of having to do pins. So we got some glue on the number 1 spot. I want my number 1 spot to be a long color. So I think I'm going to start the number 1 spot with one of these, okay? So what we're gonna do is I'm going to take my pretty side and put it down, and the paper is going to be printed side up, and we're just gonna lay them on there so that there's enough room that you have a 1/4 inch seam. Now, if you need to really see where that's gonna land, hold it up to a light. There. Just like I just did, I held it up to a light so that I could see through it to make sure I kept a 1/4 inch of fabric here and here for these seams. So the next step is finding where fabric 2 is going to go. So fabric 2 is going to go right here because it's E2, which means you're going to be sewing this line right here. So what I'm going to do to make it a little easier on myself to find that line is I am actually going to fold my paper on that line and make myself a little crease of where I need to lay that next piece. And then again, hold it up to the light, make sure that I have a 1/4 inch hanging on both sides, and it looks pretty close. I think I'm gonna shift this down just a smidge more though. Let me look at it again. Okay. And so you can pin at this point to keep those 2 pieces together. I typically don't, but I do recommend if you're a beginner sewer to pin. And so I'm going to sew on that line on the paper. Be sure to back tack and go right down it. Now you can stop exactly on where the line stops. I do like a stitch, maybe 2, and back tack right there over the line, go a little past. And then we're gonna fold this back and hold it up to the light again and make sure that this piece covers that whole area that we were trying to fill in. And it does. So it covers this whole area right here. Next step is we don't want all this extra fabric here. So since we previously folded the piece on that line, we're just gonna fold it back on the stitches, and I'm gonna cut a 1/4 inch off. So let me move some of my stacks here. I'm gonna cut a 1/4 inch away from that fold on the paper. Just like that. So we have a nice 1/4 inch, and then we're going to fold this back again, and I'm going to finger press. You can purchase one of those little pressing rollers. I got one coming. It just hasn't gotten here yet. All right. So now we've got our first one on here. But we have a whole lot hanging over into here. So what we're going to do next is we're going to fold again our paper on this whole line. So we're going to fold that back. If you have a ruler to help you do this folding, I recommend using it. I don't have one quite yet. I'm still getting the tools because I'm fairly new at it myself. Okay. So I've got a good crease right there on this line. So I'm going to fold it back this way. I'll make sure this fabric hasn't folded on itself or gone wonky. I'm going to make sure that where they cross here, I have a 1/4 inch because I'm going to trim a 1/4 inch off again. Away from that line. Okay. So you see now we have this straight edge for the next piece to go on here. So the next piece is going to be 3, and we're going to sew on this line. So for number 3, I think I'm going to do this blue. So you're kind of doing this backwards. You're always going to, this is going to be your edge, and then you've got a little seam allowance here. So always do right sides together. Line up on our 1/4 inch. And because I did my measurements just right, I have plenty hanging over there and hanging over here, which is, I got another seam allowance in here. So I'm just making sure I had plenty, and I do. So once again, flip over. So on the line, back tack a couple stitches at the very first. And backstack a couple at the very end. And so you can see here I sewed on this line now for this piece. And so when we turn it over and open this up, just like that. So now we're going to kind of do the same thing again because we have to add another piece here. We're going to do the same thing again. We're going to fold the paper, trim this away. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to fold my paper. And I do it this direction first because I am left-handed and it's just a little difficult on me. Okay. Fold this out. I'm going to press again, finger press really, really well. And then again, I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch away from that paper. Fold it back, and so you can see I have a straight line right here to place this next one, and we're just going to keep going like that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sew this curve to a small curve. Now, since I don't want the same colors together, I'm gonna swap it with one that I already had here that's in a pink. So we're gonna swap that. Oh, put it in the right spot, Roxanne. Okay, so I folded this in half. And marked the center. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. We're going to fold it in half. I'm going to finger press a crease and mark both center curves. Okay. So now I want to put these two inner curves together. So we're going to flip it up like this. And we're going to pin those exactly together right on that spot. And so I like to work this way and then go to the other side. So I'm just slowly aligning these edges together and we're going to pin. We're not pulling. We're just slowly aligning them together and pin. Slowly align together. Oop, I got that pressed a crease right there, but that's okay. I'll uncrease it. And pin. And I'm gonna, for good measure, put another pin in between there. Okay. And then I'm gonna do the same to this side. And pin. And pin. And for good measure, one between. Ooh. Okay, so you've got all that pinned. You see all these little ripples. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. So I'm going to take the one pin on the end out, align those really, really well. We want this to line up really good. So align those edges. And we're going to start sewing. Always back tack. And so what you want to do when you're sewing this is you want to make sure that everything that you lined up stays lined up. You're also going to make sure that everything in front of that needle stays flat. And so you want to try to push all the fullness that you got going on here down and away so that everything in front of your needle is going to be flat so you don't cause any pleats or puckers. This does take a little bit of practice to do, but trust me, it can be done. Just go slow. Don't try to rush it. I'm just simply pushing the ripples down and away from that needle so that everything in front of that needle is flat. It's flat, it's lined up with the piece below. Just go slow. And then we're at the last little bit. All right, so when you get done putting that on, voila, no pleats. So I'm gonna go and starch and press and come back, and we're going to put the small curve in. And so I'll be right back. All right, same process. fold in half, crease, mark it, and same process. Okay guys, that's it for this week or this month's video. These blocks turn out absolutely gorgeous. There's the one we made today together. And these are all the ones I've gotten done so far. So like I said, the quilt that I want to make is going to be 16 blocks. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 8 done, so I'm halfway there. And so I'm going to keep making these blocks and get the quilt done. And hopefully that'll be another quilt that we can, use for next month's video on the wall. So, like I said, this month's quilt will stay on this wall for a whole month. And then next month, you guys will get to, I'll do a short video before next month for you to judge and decide, vote which quilt you want next on the wall. So hopefully by next month, I'll have this one done. So that being said, that's it for today's video or this month's video. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're a new person watching my videos, please make sure you subscribe to it. It helps me out a lot. If there's anything that I missed in this video that you want clarified, let me know. I'll be more than happy to clarify that for you, because sometimes I have a tendency to go too fast when I get excited. So just let me know if there's something I missed or you want more clarity on it. I'll be more than happy to clarify for you and do a little video a little more in depth on it. This was just a quick one to kind of get you to, or help you to understand how to go about doing the foundation paper piecing, which I am finding very, very fun. I'm loving it. And I'm getting a chance to use up all of my Tula Pink scraps as well. So, I mean, yay, 2 in 1. So yeah, like I said, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Do all the things, like, subscribe, share, check out my Etsy shop for some of my patterns. Check out my Instagram, my TikTok. Everything is under Whitecotton Quilts, so it's really easy to find. And I will see you guys next month. Bye!